one of these cars. Of course, they're a little expensive. And for the consumer version, you'd probably have to take off the turret and the machine guns, except maybe in Texas. But people are still buying Toyotas. They could buy these, but instead they buy cars that have much less collision safety. Why is that? Because these are ridiculously expensive. And at some point, cost becomes prohibitive. At some point, people would rather have designed-in limitations that they understand and agree to than spend lots more money for an extra level of quality that maybe they don't even want. That kind of limitation is not a bug. So if we're going to define a bug in terms of lowered quality, then we need a definition of quality. You might wonder why I'm spending all this time on definitions. If I'm making the statement in every bug report that the program's quality is low in a particular way, then thinking about quality helps me decide what extra information to look for, what details to emphasize, so that I can write a report that even if somebody disagrees with it, they can at least say, oh, okay, well, I understand why he calls this a bug. Phil Crosby's probably best known for his book Quality is Free, and his definition, conformance with requirements, is very widely quoted. But it's important not to misunderstand him. He is often oversimplified. The word conformance does mean adherence to a specification or a standard. But when Crosby talks about conforming to requirements, he's talking about the user's actual requirements, not necessarily what's written down in a requirements specification document. The specification, like all written specifications, might be useful, but all specs are incomplete and error-prone. Now, some students of mine at this point protest because they do contract-based software development, and the contract includes detailed requirements. Their task is to deliver a product that satisfies the contract, and that's what they do. So isn't that quality? Shouldn't their quality control efforts be focused on making sure that the product conforms to the contract? Well, if you have a contractual specification, of course it's important to deliver a product that meets the spec. Otherwise, you don't get paid. Of course, it's important to test the product against the spec. But it can be very hard to specify everything you actually need. Karu Ishikawa makes this point really well in his book on Japanese quality control. The example he used involved the challenges of specifying the quality of paper that goes through printing presses, huge rolls of paper. And what's the strength of the paper? How do we specify that the paper shouldn't rip? You'd think that should be very easy to precisely specify, but he demonstrates that it's actually much more complex than it seems. All too often, you can deliver a product that satisfies a specific set of specifications, but that doesn't satisfy the customer's actual underlying needs. Now, meeting the contract means the customer has to pay you for it. That's important. But if the product doesn't work well for that customer, it's not high quality. Not for that customer, no matter what the requirement document said, and no matter how much they paid you for it. Quality is not conformance to the document. It's conformance to the needs. Joseph Juran added a useful refinement to the idea of quality. His most widely quoted definition is fitness for use, and again, that's oversimplified. He elaborated on this by distinguishing between satisfiers and dissatisfiers. Think about a computer game that you like and would recommend to a friend. What makes it so good? Anything that makes you like the game more is a satisfier. Anything that makes you like the game less is a dissatisfier. The ideal product has lots of satisfiers and not many dissatisfiers. Fitness for use is not just about unfitness for use and the lack of unfitnesses, it's also about fitnesses, satisfiers. Some people, like marketing folks, focus intensely on satisfiers. Other people, like testers, focus more on dissatisfiers, which we write up in bug reports. But when we think about quality, both perspectives are important. This distinction between satisfiers and dissatisfiers opens up a broader discussion of the dimensions of quality. For example, reliability means how long the program can run without failing. High reliability means not very many dissatisfiers of the oops, it failed kind. But capability, what the program can do for you, what the benefits are that it provides, that's a pretty important aspect of quality too. People abandon products because it doesn't deliver the benefits that they need, not just because it fails all the time. Another thing that thinking about satisfiers and dissatisfiers leads us to is the recognition that different members of the software development team are going to be more in tune with different aspects of what makes a product great. For example, a technical writer might pay more attention to design inconsistencies that confuse users and make the product harder to write about, learn about, and understand, whereas a programmer might pay much more attention to the internal excellence of the code. Good code is fast, compact, easy to understand by another programmer, easy to modify. Books like Martin Fowler's classic, Refactoring, are all about the quality of code, and they don't speak at all to the ease of using the program, to inconsistencies of the kind that a tech writer would notice. There's a pretty common dynamic in software development meetings between someone who comes in and says, we have to have this new feature.